I hope I am audible to all. Thank you very much. We begin with the name of great name of Allah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. On behalf of Zero Waste Alliance Pakistan and National University of Medical Sciences, I warmly welcome you all for joining this webinar. This webinar has been arranged in commemoration with the International Day of Zero Waste, which is annually celebrated by United Nations and across the globe. This year's theme proposed by the UNEP and the UN Habitat is tackling food waste. In this regard, we have invited eminent speakers to join us on the discussion how to tackle zero waste and transition toward a zero waste society. Before we proceed to the formal speaker session, I would like to briefly discuss with the audience about the Zero Waste Alliance Pakistan. Zero Waste Alliance Pakistan is an academia-led consortium which was founded by 8 universities, one representing from each region of Pakistan. The aim of this alliance was to advocate and foster collaboration to assign the preach or implement this zero waste practice across Pakistan, and mostly through university and community initiatives. With that in mind, we emphasize that the Zero Waste Alliance and others who are working toward minimizing the waste will adopt the zero waste principles, which are connected with the principles of circular economy, which starts with reducing waste, recovery, recycling, and then finally, the zero waste principle does not want to be in the hierarchy, is sending any waste to the landfill or to incineration, because through landfill we damage the land. Through incineration, we actually destroy the existing material into non-useful material. With that, we end from our side. We will now move on to our first speaker. Our first speaker for today is Mr. Qasim Ali Shah. Mr. Qasim is currently working as Deputy Executive Director at Sustainable Development Policy Institute, Islamabad, and he heads the Systems Research Group at SDPI. Previously, he has worked with the United Nations World Food Programme and also Action Aid International. He has worked with federal government and headed poverty reduction monitoring cell in planning and development in the Punjab province. His research focuses on agriculture, climate change, food security, social protection, humanitarian development nexus, and local governance. The floor is now over to Qasim Saab. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saab. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I'm indeed obliged to Dr. Aman, Zero Waste Consortium members, as well as the National University of Medicine Sciences for this invite to speak here to this August audience today. I'm going to take 10 minutes roughly, and my presentation is basically anchored. If you could, Dr. Aman, ask somebody to display my presentation. So my presentation is basically anchored within the National Food Security Policy 2018-2023. And more specifically, if we look into the specific sections of this policy, it's basically section 6.1.8, which deals with the food losses and the wastage, which is the topic of today, of my talk as well. So food losses or food waste, basically, it has different impacts But I'm focusing when I talk about the impacts of food waste to end hunger, I'm limiting myself to three mainly, which are related to food security. And one is the food losses and waste basically reduce the food availability, which is the first pillar of the food security. Similarly, it negatively impacts the food excess, which is an economic excess when we talk of it. And the third is basically sustainability, the unsustainable use of the natural resources. And I'm leaving the other issues with my other fellow panelists because Dr. Miriam and perhaps Musa will be talking about those aspects today. So I'm not really getting into details of that. If you could rumble this slide to the next, please. Move on, please. There will be three boxes. Next. So when we look globally on this global landscape of the food waste, it's huge food waste which is happening annually across the world. Like some numbers suggest that it's 2 billion tons of the food wasted every year, which is roughly amounts to $1 trillion. Waste food is enough actually to feed 3 billion people on this earth. And the food waste generates 8 to 10% of the global contribution is basically 8 to 10% of the global greenhouse gas emissions as well. So in this backdrop, when we look into the food waste and losses, perhaps this is a subject of very much interest to us as well. And the food losses are happening. Next slides, please. So the food, what is the food loss or the food waste? Next, please. So food losses are basically related to the two phases. One is the pre-harvest, post-harvest, and the distribution losses. This we call the losses. When it comes to hospitality industry and the household, we call it a waste. And I'm pretty much focused on waste today, so I'm not going to include the losses in my discussion. So please move on with the slides. And next, please. Yeah. So Pakistan, and I'm for now, while I have given you just a glimpse of the global landscape, I'm more focusing and zooming in on to Pakistan's situation right now. So if we look into the food security policy 2018-2023, it specifically mentions that approximately 40% of the total food produced in Pakistan is wasted or lost. Which results in like 36 million tons of food is wasted every year, valued roughly $4 billion annually. And recently we were in a seminar where the Minister for Food Security and Research said that even if a quarter of this can be saved, it is enough to feed the food insecure people living in Pakistan, which are roughly 20% to the estimates given in the State of Food Insecurity published by the FAO, United Nations, and other United Nations organizations. And if we look into the numbers, which are given by the highest 2025, which is 25% of the population, which is food insecure in Pakistan. So major, the crops or the food commodities where we feel the losses are happening is, one is the cereals, our staples. It accounts for 1 billion losses, annual losses. And the per capita, if we look into the losses, it's roughly 3,700 per year per person, the monetary losses. And the income inequality, we look into the income inequality, and thanks to the ComStats, which has recently completed this research, and they say that it's basically more food losses and wastage is happening in the higher income groups compared to the poor families. Next, please. And if in the recent report, which is published by the UNEP 2025-2026, we look into the report, the Pakistan is ranked globally third country, which is highest in the household level food wastage. It contributes roughly like 31 million tons to the global total calculated. Though the averages from Pakistan, which are usually shared within the policy documents, is 36 million tons, but perhaps those numbers is coming from the 2021. It has reduced a bit, but it hasn't reduced to the extent it should have been. So 122 per kg per person per year is the estimate by the UNEP for the year 2025. So it's a large chunk of food which is wasted of the total produce. It's like huge quantity of foods basically we are wasting in Pakistan every year. Next, please. And how it drives the food insecurity at different level, we need to look into the statistics. Pakistan is one of the only South Asian country where undernourishment is on rise over the last 2 decades. In 2004-06, roughly 17% of the population was food insecure. In year 21-23, according to the SOFI, this is roughly 21%. If we go by the highest numbers, it's roughly a quarter of population, which is 25% population, is food insecure. And this is the most recent statistics published by the government of Pakistan itself. And if we look into the cost of diet, who are the poor, who are basically unable to afford a healthy diet in Pakistan, the number back in 2023, this was 82% of the population. In 24-25, this is 60%, because the inflation has gone down, so then the number has come down also. If we look into the number of the children who are stunted, and the wastage is high again in the region. And the Pakistan ranks 106 out of 123 on the Global Hunger Index as well. So the situation is pretty grim when we look into the food security statistics. But when we look into the numbers on the food wastage, again, these are pretty high. And as I said, and this is proven by the research from the concepts as well, that mostly the high income groups and mostly in the urban settings, the food losses are food wastage is much higher. Food losses definitely are much higher when it comes to food losses in the rural settings. And there is a specific link between the food wastage, food security, and the climate change, which haven't been discussed in detail mostly as of now. We talk of it, but we haven't specifically looked into the Pakistan NDCs. And yesterday, when I was preparing for this talk and I was looking into the NDCs, agriculture sector remains the second highest emitter, also according to the NDCs 3 as well. So this is the one fact. And also the food, if we look at globally, next slide, please. As I said earlier, that 8 to 10% of the global greenhouse gas emissions is from the food sector or agriculture sector. It basically means that the agriculture or the food sector is the third largest emitter after China and the US globally. And when we look into the resource depletion, basically globally, it's 1.4 billion hectares of the farmland on which we are growing food is all wasted, and it's not been consumed by the people itself. And 25% of all water which is used in agriculture sector is wasted as well. So the losses in terms of the land use, in terms of the resource use, again, if we look into it, it's huge. And it's not just the food. If we monetize these numbers, perhaps it will be much higher than the $1 trillion, which is basically only for the produce itself. And the feedback is basically that the Pakistan is much prone to the disasters. Either it's the floods, either it's the droughts, heat waves, everything has its impact on the food sector as well. It destroys the crops, it cuts the food supply systems as well. Reduced supply basically drives overproduction, generating more wastage and more emissions. It also results into the increase in the inflation, food inflation, and the food becomes more expensive, especially for the poor households. And the food production overall contributes 33.7% of the all global greenhouse gas emissions as well. Next, please. Next. And the way forward, I'm more interested actually, and I'm leaving this part with the colleagues from the risk as well, because they are going to speak about this model which they have actually been using here. But I just wanted to draw your attention that the UK and Japan are the best case studies which are presented globally, where the food wastage has decreased tremendously. And they have used both these things. One, they have the institutional reforms, other, they have engaged the communities at different levels. And if we look into the food security policy, section 6.1.8 specifically, it also talks about the behavioral change campaigns. Though yesterday, health minister was very open and he said that the behavioral change communications for polio eradication haven't worked in Pakistan. I don't know in which sector it would work, but this is the one of the things perhaps where we need to think about it. And one good model is basically the Punjab model, which is basically pretty much operational in Lahore and some urban localities in Pakistan, but perhaps this needs to be extended to the other parts of Punjab, especially the other districts, and more towards the hospitality industry, where perhaps we need to pay more focus. But we need to agree on a food pact. that's the best way forward. And this should include not just the government. It should not be limited just to the private sector, civil society organization, hospitality industry, but more so with you and me, with the consumers, with the communities itself. If we do that, perhaps we can not only reduce the food wastage, but we can also bring the food which we are wasting every year to the people who are basically in need of the food more. And somebody said, some wise person said at some point that basically food wastage is not that we eat all the food. It's basically that we get only the food which we need to live. And I stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for this insightful presentation. I think there was a lot to learn from you, your voice will be there available for others to learn from them on our social media YouTube channel. We really look forward to the Punjab's model to see how it can help us. Our own effort at NUMS doing an action research with the behavior change along with adopting these policies helped us to reduce our waste, minimize our waste by 70%, which was a very revealing thing for us to know that how systemically changing the pathway helps reduce the waste and repurposes it. And we now move to our next speaker. Next speaker is Ms. Mariam Kurgeli. She is from the Aga Khan University and currently as Director of the Environment and Sustainability. And also she is a lecturer at the University of Arts and Science of the Aga Khan University. She was part of founding this alliance, and Mariam provides strategic direction for Aga Khan University's environmental sustainability initiatives and its journey toward net zero emissions. Mariam led the development of the university's first decarbonization plan and continues to guide its implementation while integrating sustainability across operations, education, and research. She has over 16 years of global experience in climate change and international development. Her work includes working with UNEP, GIZ, ADP, and IUCN. With these all credit to her efforts toward environment. She also combines policy expertise with practical innovation at the Aga Khan University. I would now give the floor to Mariam. Please take it away, Mariam. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for the kind introduction, Aman. Thank you to our wonderful speaker for SDPI. I think this actually leads on really wonderfully from here. I trust you can see the screen, otherwise you'll let me know. So what I want to talk a bit more about is food waste from a bit of a broader angle than just the waste after we eat it. And our previous speaker referred to some of those other places where the waste occurs, especially in Pakistan, and really bring that into our specific institutional setting and gives just a few examples of how we've made small tweaks in our practice, but how we've tried to monitor some of them, and they have really significant impacts, not just for us as an institution, but actually for behavior change well beyond the walls of our institution. So really for a kind of transformation at the larger scale, hopefully. So why food matters for environment and climate is, of course, again, not going into this background in too much detail, but food does account for probably actually over a third of global emissions. And most of us don't really know that, don't really think about it. I like to reformulate this in a positive way, to actually say what we do 3 times a day or many more times if we do take some snacks in between, actually has this impact, but also therefore the opportunity. So every choice many times a day actually contributes to improving the environment or climate, or kind of going down the path that we've been seeing in the past. So there's really a bit of a reformulation. And of course, if we go further into the details where that waste occurs, You can see that on the right-hand side. Interestingly enough, food waste is not listed in there, which is why I'm suggesting we're probably well over a third of global emissions. And of course, it's not just the emissions that drive climate change, it's land use change, deforestation, plastics and packaging. I mean, the whole shebang, right? Water use, which in a country like Pakistan, of course, is really critical. And right now, right, the use of inorganic or synthetic fertilizer, right, that will maybe not be possible in the future if our geopolitical conditions continue as they are. And maybe that's a shake-up. It's a reminder for us to think about, you know, how could we do things differently. This, of course, we've heard from our previous speaker, so I won't go into it much more, but just the reminder that food in Pakistan is about much more than just quality. It's really about quantity and access as well. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. And I think the cultural aspect as well, for us, that's really come into play when we've tried to make changes, because there's just really strongly entrenched preferences, as well as expectations of what people expect to maybe eat in the cafeterias of our university. Now, what are some of the drivers of food waste that we have seen, that we've observed through, for example, informal interviews, student ideation, observation, and I should add here actually data from our food services department. So firstly, all the food that we use at the university in Pakistan, we have locations in other countries, but in this case in Pakistan, is nationally sourced. That's pretty obvious, right? Because imported food items are just incredibly expensive, and so we don't want to pass that cost to our users. We cook for a huge range of different people. I think that's a really important reminder for us. It's not just our students and people who work here, but it's patients, attendants, and visitors, right? People who come from across the country, maybe even the region, who have to spend a few weeks maybe with their family members in town and access the food here. So all of these, let's call them audiences or stakeholders, have different preferences and ways they eat, etc. And so it's not always easy to keep or to make everyone happy with the changes. Some of the identified sources of the food waste, inefficient peeling, so the things that happen in the kitchen, limitations in menu variation. So students often tell me, oh, it's dal chawal again, or it's like this kind of salan again. And so, yeah, that's what they'll get on their plate. But actually, then when they sit down, they're kind of really struggling to finish it because they're like, it's the same again. And actually, that leads to food waste. So simply varying the menu could here be an option to address that, right? Little to no variation portion sizes. So for example, for rice, we've started that. You can have a really big full plate or kind of a half plate of rice. You can, of course, take 1 chapati or 3. That's possible, but for example, for the salan or other kind of sizes, that's not easily possible, right? So that leads to a certain amount of wastage. Storage post-purchase. So if someone takes the food in a box, maybe leaves it in the fridge in their residence and forgets about it, that's a significant source. Packaging is not to be overlooked. And it's not just the packaging of our cooked food, really what happens within the institution, but our thinking, how can we work with our suppliers and the amount of packaging that actually comes into the university and actually just stays with us. We're suddenly end up being responsible for it. So just noticing these things has been really critical for us to kind of start thinking. Now, I want to give just, I think, 4 examples of different entry points we've taken. These are just examples. Maybe some of them are transferable ideas for you. But again, please treat them as examples of things that we've kind of tried and experimented with. The first one is, of course, meat. So if you just look at the graph on the right-hand side, red meat in particular, but also dairy products have a really, really high impact on the planet. Now, that's culturally inappropriate to say because apparently we all love red meat and we don't like cutting down on it. But just having an education campaign around it is one of the places that we started. So we translated some of this data in a bit more easily to understand kind of graphics and put them, in different parts of our various cafeterias, just to actually let people know. That was the start. And then we started this campaign, which internationally is called Meatless Monday. We made a meatless mangal out of it, right? And so every Tuesday in our cafeterias, the subsidized meals actually are all vegetarian rather than 1 veg and 1 meat dish. People didn't like it very much in the beginning, and we actually saw people then ordering from outside, which is called leakage, right? So more waste, more packaging, etc., being created. But I think over time, actually, we've seen numbers kind of normalize across the week and no change on the Tuesday, because people have started to understand that this is for their own personal health as well. So sometimes it's about shifting the communication from the planet to the personal benefit. Because thinking about the planet is really difficult, right? And it seems really far away, and it seems to be the responsibility of the global north, etc. So sometimes it's really about this reframing. Similar data from, I'm just taking the example of our, university in Nairobi, similar hospital plus university setting. And we saw a 13% reduction of meat from year to year, over several years, actually. And again, that's huge if you translate that into emissions savings. Another one is packaging. So one of the first things that my office did after its creation, so my office is not that old yet, as you can see, is actually to say these single-use plastic water bottles are incredibly annoying. And again, they're incredibly bad for our health, right? It's not just the planet. But getting rid of them wasn't all that easy. And so we had a lot of these discussions around, well, what is the alternative? What should our patients, our students, etc., do, right? And really, I'm going to call this, we're pretty addicted to plastic, right? Globally, that's just how it is. It's so subsidized and so cheap that we don't even seem to be thinking about possible alternatives. Now, what actually changed all of this was when I went to people with a lot of life experience, right? So people who've been working at the university for 40 plus years, or just people who've been living in this part of the world for many years, and said, when you were a child or when you were a trainee doctor, how did things happen? Because plastics weren't around to that extent. And guess what? A glass jug and a glass is simply the way to go. Now, that type of conversation, though, translated to so many other areas where plastics are used, simply asking, what happened? How did it work 20, 30, 40 years ago? And very often there's your solution, right? We were very able to wash things, including cloth gowns in our operating rooms, etc. So this has really been quite a transformative cultural shift. And I guess one of my proudest moments then was when I got this random phone call and someone was, oh, my kid who studies with someone at AKU says, you've gotten rid of these plastic water bottles. I run a school in Karachi. Can you tell me how to do this? Right? And so suddenly there's this kind of multiplier effect, right? And of course, our suppliers didn't like this, right? So without naming a company, they called us up and said, well, we want to sell bottles to you again. And I said, yes. Then get me glass bottles that are washable, that you will take back and wash. And they were suddenly like, So these are not comfortable conversations all the time, but it really creates that cultural change. Third one, composting, pretty straightforward. And we continue to really debate how to do this. Given the vast amount of landscaping and food waste that we have, there's a lot that could be composted. Should we do it on our own campus? Should we sell it on for animal feed? Should we sell it to someone else to make compost? Unfortunately, the value has not been recognized. And so actually we'd have to pay someone to do this, which actually is absurd if you think about the huge fertilizer need in the country. But it continues to be a bit of a struggle. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about student ideation. So we have this, what we call the President's Challenge for Climate Solutions. You can see on the bottom right. Every year we have a theme. This year, our theme happens to actually be changing food systems. And so what we do is we train and engage students across the year, across 4 campuses all around the world. And they come up with ideas how to address this, because climate is too big, right? So we give them a bit of a smaller theme. There's a bit of a QR code here. So if you wanted to scan that, that's ideas of the last 3 years. The food theme is still underway. But here are some of the ideas that this year students have come up with. And I'm going to let you kind of read through these really quickly or scan through them as I kind of keep talking. What you're seeing is that we're really trying to get the students to think very practically. These are not business ideas, right? We're not an incubator, but actually to come up with ideas that really address an actual problem on the ground. Many of them are actually applicable to our campuses as well, or to student communities. And so this has been really fun to kind of engage with them on this food theme too. So really quickly summing it up, what I always recommend to people is actually just open your eyes, right? Try to observe and get some unrealistic, like unprofessional data. It really doesn't have to be perfect, right? You don't have to start thinking about doing science here, but start just observing where the kind of bottlenecks and opportunities are, right? Also, data per se does not lead to action. So very often we wait for perfect data, but that's not where the action starts. The action often starts with our own practice, with our students, with changing processes, etc. And sometimes we just have to dare to try. And we have to dare to start small. It doesn't all have to be perfect and address everything at the same time. Also, let's practice in our own homes. As I said, we eat 3 or so times a day. So let's figure it out there and then translate it to our institutions. And when we're able to do that, maybe we're more willing, more able, more motivated to take the next step and leading by example. So when I do something, well, everybody knows that I'm the environment person. So they're going to be more encouraged. So I really mean leadership, whether it's the VC of your university or the CEO of your hospital or whoever it may be, get them really to showcase it. It'll make all the difference. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. As always, it was very interesting, and have a lot of examples for us to learn. AKU stands best when it comes to sustainability, and partly because of your effort, we are now having these all.
Not best, sorry. It's just that we're willing to try and experiment, and these are just a few small examples, but we hope that they kind of translate into more.
That's great. So
also, really apologies, I have to leave for something else. If there's questions, Aman, maybe you can just email them to me and I could get back to people over email or something. Thank you so much.
Right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time. We apologize for engaging you when you are already in line with other activities. All right, thank you very much, Miriam. Okay, next in line, we have our speaker from National University of Science and Technology. We have Professor Dr. Zishan Sheikh. Professor Zishan is currently serving as a tenured professor at the Institute of Environmental Sciences and Engineering at NUST. He's also serving as the Director, Resource Recovery and Waste Treatment Research Group at IESE, which is also an institution of NUST. His primary research interests include soil waste composting, biogas production, microalgae-based carbon utilization, resource recovery, and wastewater treatment technologies. Professor Zishan is actually a very seasoned scientist with an extensive publication and supervising many students to his credit. Professor Zishan will be educating us on composting particularly. So over to you, Dr. Zishan.
Thank you, Dr. Aman, for the nice introduction. So I will be talking about composting process and the part when we consume food. After that, we get waste. So this would be the outline of my presentation. So we'll be talking about the process and composting in circular economy framework and what are the gaps or challenges in composting of the food waste and addressing those gaps. So waste, we generate like 50 million tons of municipal solid waste a year in Pakistan, and it is increasing at the rate of 2.5% annually. And around 50 to 60% of this waste consists of actually biodegradable organic material, mainly the food waste. And we also call it garbage. And the nature of this waste is that it is highly putrescible, which means it biodegrades rapidly and it quickly causes a foul smell. So in food waste, we include all the material coming from plants and animal origin, like vegetable waste, fruit waste, cooked food waste, right? So a little bit about its impact on impact of improper management. Like we have gaseous emissions from food waste. If we don't manage it properly, then groundwater contamination, soil pollution. For example, if we burn it, we get CO2, NOx, SOx, dioxins, furans, toxic ash from burning. And when we dump it in the dump site, we also get methane gas emissions. Similarly, the plastic bags, when they photodegrade, they produce petropolymers, which degrade the soil quality. They also enter in our food chain. Similarly, due to seepage and infiltration of the leachate produced from this food waste, the groundwater contaminates. Also, it reaches our lakes and streams due to runoff water. So it directly or indirectly affects our health. Talking about its contribution to the climate change, solid waste sector roughly contributes to 11% of global anthropogenic methane emissions. So this is the part after we have consumed food and we have generated food waste, right? So it doesn't include agriculture or food production. So this is just about waste. Similarly, 5% of global carbon, black carbon emission also there from this waste. And total contribution to climate change, roughly that's 3% of greenhouse gases emissions globally. A little bit about its management options. Once it is generated from its various sources like households, hotels, restaurants, commercial areas, it is then collected using door-to-door waste collection system or curbside waste collection system. But the problem is that all the waste is collected in mixed form. Like we don't have separation at the source, we don't have segregation at the moment. So after its collection, it needs to be managed either through landfilling or incineration. And the organic food can be digested anaerobically to produce methane gas, and it can also be composted. Because today we are talking about food waste, so we will be focusing much about focusing on composting. Basically, it's an aerobic process and biological process. So it means we need to provide air and microorganisms to this generated food waste. And then it will be converted into a humus-like material, which we call as compost. So it takes certain time period. So the science of composting is quite simple. Like food waste, it already contains nutrients, it already contains, organic matter and moisture content. All we need to do is we need to provide air and inoculum, the source of microorganisms. And then it is converted into compost, which is a stable organic matter, and we can apply it in our soils, and it is also rich in nutrients. So during this process, there are certain key parameters that we need to look into. For example, we need to have certain carbon to nitrogen ratio, which should be between 25 to 30, and which is already there in our food waste. Moisture content 50 to 60% already there in our food waste. And when it decomposes, it itself generates heat, so temperature raises slowly, and it reaches up to thermophilic range like 60 or 65 degrees Celsius. So we don't need to provide all these three things. So we just need to provide air at the rate of 0.5 liters per minute per kilogram of organic matter, which is quite low quantity of air. So talking about its existing types, we have very simple and low cost method, which we call it windrow composting, in which we need to have piles of organic waste. And for providing this air, what we do is we have to turn these piles. So we can do turning by using shovels manually, or we can use mechanical turner. And similarly, second method is semi-mechanized method, in which we don't do turning, rather we use blowers, air pumps, and air is pumped through perforated pipes, which is below the pile of organic matter. So in this way, we provide air in our food waste for its aerobic decomposition. And the third option is in-vessel composting, in which we do composting in the reactors, in the vessels. So it is highly mechanized system. It is enclosed system. So we have lot of control over the process because we can have control over its mixing, its air provision, its moisture maintenance, as well as its temperature maintenance. So because of all these controls, we get very good control of the process, and because of this reason, this process takes very little time, right? So in circular economy framework, this process of composting actually closes the loop by returning the nutrients and stable organic matter into the soil, rather than sending all that material to the landfill. So the key contributions we get from this composting process are waste reduction, because when we compost 60% of our total waste, and after that 15 to 20% of recyclables that is already collected by most of the informal sector. So after that we are just left with 25% of the total waste. What does that mean? That means that we can use our landfill for 4 times greater time as compared to what we are doing currently. So we can use it for longer time. Similarly, emission reduction will happen from the dump site if we will collect the food waste and convert it into compost, and then compost is added into the soil, which improves the qualities of soil, as well as which has certain economic value. So talking about challenges and gaps in this composting of food waste, first thing we need is a separate organic waste, but we don't have infrastructure, we don't have system for separation and segregation of this waste at the source. Second, we also have limited availability of technological solutions to convert the waste into compost. Although there are certain solutions which are there, but we don't have, controlled systems currently in Pakistan. Then there is very weak legislative framework, because we don't have specific legislation for different types of waste like food waste. Similarly, we have insufficient waste related data for high level policy decisions. There is resource constraints as well as lack of public awareness. These are also adding to the challenges. So talking about addressing these challenges, first we need to do waste segregation at the source. Most of you might have seen these different colored bins which segregate waste, different types of waste in these different colored bins, but these systems exist in developed countries. In our case, we have mixed collection in a single container. But what we could do is we can, adopt the approach which is being adopted in many, developing countries of the world, like Turkey. What they do is they separate waste in 2 bins. So at least we should do this, that we can separate our wet waste, which is food waste, in a separate container, while dry waste, which mainly includes, recyclables, paper, plastic, metals, glass, so that can be put in the dry bin. So this is the least we must do. Regarding the composting solutions, this is passively aerated box composting, which is quite simple, low cost, and passively aerated system. We don't need to provide air by using pumps. So what we do is we need to have these composting boxes with perforations or holes, and air can go by itself passively. And we also install the perforated pipes into these boxes, and this system is already in place in more than 15 locations in peri-urban areas of Pakistan, and this is being operated by Dr. Akhtar Hamid Khan Memorial Trust, and it operates in Islamabad and many cities. But the problem is that this method takes very long duration for converting food waste into compost, like 45 days. This 45 days means we are getting compost today. It was actually fed into this system 45 days ago. And the compost we will be getting tomorrow, it was actually fed 44 days ago, and so on. So it means we need to accommodate waste of 45 days into this system. That's why we need large area. So in contrast to this system, we have a mechanized system, which we were talking about. It takes only 1 day. It has got very huge control over the process because we can control temperature, air, mixing, right? And we can also apply it in cold areas because for conversion of waste into compost, we also need to develop certain, temperature. But that temperature is not very practical in cold areas like Murray or Naran or Kagan, where we have our hospitality sector. We have a lot of hotels and restaurants, right? So this process, because of huge control over it, takes only 1 day. So we can process our waste within the same day. And these are certain parts of this system. It needs to have built-in shredder, and it has mixing helical mixer inside the chamber. And there are provisions for air and heating in this system. And there is all these things are controlled by a control panel. But the bad news is that we don't have this system in Pakistan. And good news is that we are developing it right now at NAST with the financial support of IC Mode Nepal. And we are going to install it in Murray in a hotel. And hope we will replicate it and use this solution for our hospitality sector and many more other areas. So this is the last slide. We need to run awareness campaign at grassroots levels because we need to change behavior of the nation, and for that purpose we also need to train and educate relevant stakeholders, right? So in the same project we are also doing these things like conducting awareness sessions and trainings for waste segregation and composting, and the project was for Murray. That's why we have been doing it during last few months, all these things in Murray. So these are certain actions that we need to take, like we need to take collective action from individuals and institutions and governments, right? And individuals need to adopt waste segregation and composting practices at household levels. And similarly, institutions such as universities, housing societies, private businesses, they need to implement these composting systems. And government should also update their policies, and they should enforce those evidence-based policies, and they should promote awareness to support sustainable waste management. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zishan. It's always inspiring to talk to you and learning all about your research. And the exciting thing is you are already putting your ideas into practice, and that too in Murray. I hope we will have a visit to your implementation area to learn and replicate it back here in different parts of our setting. So we now move to our next speaker. I hope you will stay with us for the Q&A session so that we can engage more. Our next speaker is Mr. Musa Amir. Musa Amir is a young social entrepreneur, and she is a co-founder of Risk, a social enterprise focused on achieving zero hunger. That's SDG 2. Risk works, his organization, which he co-founded, works through a vast array of projects and social businesses aim to holistically transform food waste system from agriculture to end consumers, as well as food-based companies through regionalization of excess food. Musa is the youngest recipient of LUMS Alumni Achievement Award, also recognized as an Acumen Fellow and featured on the TEDx Howard Pakistan Forum and also Royal Commonwealth Society. We are all proud of him because he is also a recipient of Pride of Pakistan Award from the government of Pakistan. Musa, the floor is now over to you. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aman Saab. उम्मीद है आप तमाम लोग खैरियत से हैं. Can I be able to share my screen, or I have sent my presentation to Dr. Atila if you can present it?
You can share your screen. That would be good.
Dr. Zishan has to stop.
I don't have the permission.
Yeah, Dr. Zishan has to actually remove his stop sharing the Dr. Zishan, if you can do the stop sharing of your slides.
Okay, it's done.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can see. Thank you.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Hope you are well. Thank you so much for the more than generous introduction, Dr. Aman. My name is Musa. I'm one of the co-founders at RISK. RISK is an organization that is working on food security and reimagining our food systems across the food supply chain, from farm to fork. And to achieve that end, we have multitude of programs that range from interventions in agriculture to interventions in urban food security, climate resilience, as well as education and advocacy and research. So although we have a very big portfolio of work that we do, but our story initially started off with a project that is very dear to our organization and dear to the organization's heart and DNA still, which is called Risk Bachao. So basically, Risk Bachao was the inception of Risk as well. It was the first program that we launched. And the story is that you might already know the problem that is at hand. 36 million tons of food is wasted annually in Pakistan, which is equivalent to around 37% of food. So we as young students back in 2015, while we were college sophomores at LUMS, we were really troubled with this reality that there is so much food being wasted, and at the same time there is so many people that are hungry. The story is that in my own home for the past 20 odd years, my mom has been running a soup kitchen at the Sahan daily on a daily basis. So around 300 to 400 people come to the Sahan as well. So that was the kind of environment that we were being brought up in. So that reality really hit hard when we went to LUMS, and we really got exposed to the extent of food waste, not just in our college campus, but around in some of the larger upscale eateries of Lahore. So in that vein, we just started and took initiative, and started off with a very simple and robust model, very simple model in its infancy, which was to channelize any excess food that we can find. And the story is that we just made a Facebook page, named it Risk, and we just put our food numbers out there and ask anyone that if they had any excess food left over, do not waste it, instead call us. So that is kind of like the very humble origins of Risk, and that's where we started off. So the first phase of this particular model from 2015 to 2019 2020 was just, you can say, the foundational phase, and it really just map or multiple iterations of the model so that we could come up to somewhat a very robust mechanism. So as a start, the journey started off with just us collecting excess food in our own cars. From there on, we mobilized the entire volunteer force across various universities, and then used to work with those university students to create a volunteer movement to collect excess food from various restaurants. And at that point in time, the entire model was that all the food that was collected eventually came back onto our own dastahan, which was running in my home, so we could supplement the food that was already being produced there. But over time, what we realized was that volunteerism wasn't, you can say, a really sustainable endeavor in that regard. And obviously, throughout this entire model, the entire model was being funded by our own, pocket money or own donations that we had been collecting. So those were the two very critical flaws in that particular aspect. And we as students of economics always wanted to make some this very sustainable, and at the same time a model that really had significant impact as well, measurable impact as well. So therein lied our first iteration, which was to create Pakistan's first food bank within Sultan Park, Lahore, because we made the decision that instead of just distributing the excess food that we collect randomly across Lahore, we would focus it on one particular community so we could track the changes of our food waste intervention over time. So that was first iteration. And the second iteration that we did was that instead of just going on our own bikes, on our own cars, how about we invest in our own logistics? So we bought a rickshaw, we modified it, we called it rickshaw, we created a campaign on it, and it was Pakistan's first dedicated food saving vehicle. And we had a helpline attached to it. So all the time, any household, any restaurant, if they had excess food left over, our logistics fleet went to them, they collected the excess food and came back and distributed it at the food bank. One little caveat that we did, you can say the third iteration that we did was, now when we started to distribute all the food within a food bank, we started to price it. And the price was very minimal. It was around 10 rupees per person per day. So any person can come up to and collect the food from our food bank, provided he's verified, because our team has already deep down connections within the community. They do robust surveys to verify people, and those verified people got dedicated risk identity cards, and showing off by showing their cards at the food bank, they could then get the food on a really subsidized and a really priced manner, right? So that was the model. And it went really well. It blew up very well. We, managed to get a lot of big restaurant partnerships as well. And, that was the entire process. So the one particular problem that we faced during this entire process was more of a communications nature, because when we talk to people that we were channelizing food waste, they automatically went to, okay, the food that is left over in plates, the half-eaten gravies or the half-eaten chicken pieces, are you serving those to people? So having to communicate to them that already in the restaurant industry, in the hoteling industry, or even households, there's a lot of excess food left over, which is particularly left untouched. So that was our primary, you can say primary area of intervention that we used to collect that, and all of those things as well. More so, what we also realized was in Pakistan, there was no particular data on a household level on what type of food is being wasted. Similarly, on a restaurant level, on what type of food is being wasted. So we worked with restaurants to create mechanisms by which we could categorize the type of food waste that was coming in. And then when we categorized the type of food waste coming in, we started to reprice a little bit of those food waste as well, because if we got gravies and chicken, it was priced a little slightly higher to, let's just say, 15 rupees vis-a-vis just naan bread, which is priced at around 1 or 2 rupees, things like that. So that categorization also helped, and we started to make this entire models whereby we started to collect data of all the food that was exiting a restaurant, and as well all the food that was coming into our food bank, right? Organically, we also started to create certain business rules as well, because we started to get a lot of weird requests from the household as well. So one day we got a call from a household saying that, I have a jar of pickles left over, please come and get it. Similarly, at one other time, it was like, I have one plate of biryani left over, please come and get it. So it was really difficult to tell to them, okay, just for a one plate or a one jar of pickles to actually mobilize an entire logistical machinery, that does not make sense, because the cost of fuel that I incur on it, that is equivalent to maybe feeding 1 or 2 meals at that point during those days, right? So we needed to again create consumer awareness that if there are food is below certain thresholds, we will not come. We advocate that you distribute it amongst your house help or people around you, but provided it is above certain thresholds, we will start to take it as well. So this was the entire context within the first 4 to 5 years. But one critical thing that really bottled our growth moving forward was this, that many restaurants slowly started to not give us food anymore. And when we inquired, we realized that there was a huge threat of donor liability, because that is a space that is non-existent within Pakistan at that point in time. There was a huge worry that any donor or restaurant, if they donate excess food, they might then and if somebody gets sick by eating that excess food, they might then be legally liable for that. So we worked with the PFA, we worked with other bodies of within the Lahore Restaurant Association and other civil service organizations to create the Pakistan's first food waste law, which was the disposal of food waste, excess food regulation in 2019, which basically absorbed all of these restaurants and other industry players who wanted to donate excess food, provided they fulfilled certain criteria before donating it. So that was a very hallmark success that was modeled on the Good Samaritan law and some other US and UK based policies, and that was the first foray into food-based law. So now that basically opened up, created a regulatory environment for us to, work more and get into this process even more. But as you know, 2019 was also the time of COVID. So a lot of the restaurant industry during that time really closed up, right? So what do we do? What's next? So what next was that during this phase, whereas a lot of other industries was closing, risk was hyper expanding. And one of the reasons that we were hyper expanding was that more so we had a shift from individual to more so institutional donors, right? And there were two reasons for it. One reason was that we started to get a bulk of our you can say food waste from the manufacturing and the retail sector, because since the shops were closed, a lot of inventory was getting near to expiry, so we had to work with them in order to channelize it. And one other thing you would also realize was that there was a huge inflow of online apps, grocery apps in particular, example Airlift, example Grocer, that really you can say forayed in the inventory mechanisms, and they had huge warehouses. In order to get more people onto their app, they used to give a lot of discounts, and all of this entire scenario created a lot of waste, right? And so as these grocery apps grew, so did risk. So we started to then get even unique items like Mario olives, or packed goods like Milos, or cakes, and so on and so forth. So that was the extent of food that we started to get. And a very small figure was that before COVID, that we were collecting around 15,000 kilos per month, and that jumped up to around 2 lakh kilos per month during the COVID peak times. So that was one big thing. So now once the amount of food started to also increase, we realized that we cannot use one food bank to distribute it alone. And at the same time, because you also would realize that in that time, the entire process was that there was an Uberization trend going on. So you really did not want to invest in more brick and mortar structures. So what we realized that it is better to use already existing community infrastructure and NGO infrastructure rather than creating our own food banks. So what we did was we created a massive SOPs and entire robust mechanisms by which we started to map different civil service organizations across Lahore, and also started to vet them and through our own criteria. And the model then became that all of the food that was collected came to a central warehouse, and these civil service organizations could come to us and get excess food from us at a monthly subscription fees, which was somewhere around 5,000 to 10,000 rupees per month. So at our peak, we had around 180 vetted organizations across 5 cities. We had 200, restaurants, grocery stores, and so on and so on our panel. And so the model essentially shifted from us being a direct, you can say direct deliverer of goods, last mile deliverer of goods, to a more aggregated place. So this is basically what really shaped things up, and more so now we started to include a lot of other HACCP security protocols. So food safety, we started to work with PFA, because the regulatory environment was also, you can say, organically iterating as we were iterating with them, right? So it was just a chicken and the egg situation at that point in time. Right. So phase 3, but obviously once COVID subsided, a lot of this, food-based marketplace subsided as well, because a lot of these grocery stores, online grocery stores closed down, Airlift closed down, a whole lot of other things closed down. So we were like, okay, what should we do, right? What's the main model going ahead? So, the final model basically is that right now we are in a marketplace phase. So the entire model of risk is a food-based marketplace, where we, on one hand, now we have an extreme list of vetted NGO organizations, and on the other hand, we have an extreme list of vetted donor organizations as well who want to donate food. And now these donor organizations are food business operators from across the supply chain, not just restaurants, but manufacturers, retailers, all the way to farms, right? So all of these players are over there. And as risk, what I intend to do, particularly for you can see, particularly for the household level food waste and the restaurant level food waste, which by the way is not so much. It is just you can say around 3 to 6 kilos per day on average. So what we do, instead of utilizing our own fleet, what we do is connect them with local NGOs. For example, if let's just say Lal Kila restaurant has a food left over any particular day, they would reach out to us, and then we'll immediately connect them to the nearest NGO or civil service organization. So that just saves down on time, and it just makes the entire transaction more, you can say, efficient. And at the same time, what we are doing is focusing more on the bigger consignments. So, for example, huge consignments upward of 1 lakh kgs of food. We recently channelized a consignment of 19,000 kgs of frozen mangoes, right? So these are the bigger consignments that are near to expiry that we channelize, and then we channelize in different ways. So there are two modes of channelization. The first mode of channelization is that we get the food from these bigger players free of cost, and then we distribute it at free of cost as well. And the onus for the reason that the corporates would want to give this food is because of donation write-offs, number one, and secondly because it is very, very expensive to keep near to expiry food saved within their own storage houses as well, because that just adds to the cost. So they want to replenish the inventory with new items so they could sell it. They can't sell the near expiry food. So that's one thing, right? And the second thing is that we try to create financial arrangements with these people where we buy near to expiry stuff from them at a very subsidized rate, and in that case what we do is we sell that at a slight premium as well, so that we can manage all the logistics and that we can manage all the entire stuff as well. So this is where the model is now working on. But right now, again, we are working more on the compliance and regulatory side as well, because we want to regularize the donor write-offs law within Pakistan, particularly for excess food, because globally what happens is that if you donate excess food, you can claim donation write-offs. The process within Pakistan is still really ambiguous. So that's one thing. And secondly, we are working with PFA and other regulatory bodies to actually create the regulatory environment that would allow us to use any excess food that is not fit for human consumption first for animal feed, and then if it's not suitable for animal feed, for composting and fertilizer as well. Because again, the regulatory compliance workers, they are obviously working with the thought in mind that there might always be the case that if somebody, a donor gives let's just say food for animal feed processing to some organization, that organization might, just sell it off in the market as human food as well. So those are very realistic concerns, and now we are working with the regulatory and compliance workers on how to best create operations and frameworks in order to avoid that. So that is kind of like the entire journey, three-phase journey that we are in. And right now what we're doing is basically creating a technology layer as well. So the huge communities that we have built, we are putting them on a technology layer so that we can multiply or impact. And yeah, so this is just a last slide, just an evolution of how the model has changed. From our first phase, it was personal cars, and the second phase we had on fleet, and in the third phase right now it is by working as a partner and aggregator. We connect partners directly with the people, and more so the revenue model has also changed over the time periods as well. So that's basically the work that we are in, and we'll definitely want to work with you guys as well as academia and as policy researchers in order to make this more robust. And the impact that we have had is that we have saved up to 4 million kilos of excess food that has saved around 12 million meals, and the value is more than of this food is more than 10 crore rupees. And you can say 3 key lessons that we have had was that we build infrastructure before you ask for permission. So we created food banks, we created logistical fleets, we created our own set of quality standards, and then we took it to regulatory and compliance workers, because then they were able to see it in action, and then it made sense for them as well. And also that any crisis will professionalize and you faster than any plan, and that is the relation with COVID. We realized as a lot of food was coming in, we started to, on a really social entrepreneurial lens, make it more better, and the best model will make itself unnecessary. And that is what we are doing with not going into last mile delivery ourselves, by making it a marketplace. So that's kind of like a very summary of the entire model. And thank you so much for having me, and we look forward to having such thoughtful and engaging conversations with you.
Grateful, Musa. It's one of the very great initiatives we have seen in Pakistan, as from it's new to Pakistan's innovation industry, like the social innovation. People talk about the material innovation, but there is hardly on this side. We also believe that Pakistan's challenges are more social problems rather than technology problems. And I think moving in a systemic way, that puts things together and work more sustainably. My question from you would be how you are thinking the sustainability of this project, because you saw that there were a lot of challenges for you, and particularly the regulatory requirement in this hygiene requirement, and then the changing perception of food, because kids, the younger generation, are no more accepting foods. They like it from particular restaurants and these all things. So can you educate us on this little bit?
So I think the sustainability bit is somewhat more catered due to the fact that we have now shifted to a marketplace model rather than doing last mile delivery ourselves. So जितना भी खाना हमें घरों से आता है या जितना भी रेस्टोरेंट से होता है जो कि थोड़ी मकदार का होता है, we do not jump in to save it ourselves. So we just connect households to the nearest NGO, we just connect restaurants to the nearest NGO, and what we are now just making a system is to track data of that transaction. So for example, if it is 2 kilos of food that is going on, we just want to that data at the end of the day. So that's one thing. And the larger consignments we are working on in of itself, because that is where most of the food waste is, not at the household level, not at the restaurant level. It is more so in the manufacturing and retail space. and it is more so in the rural supply chains in the sense of food loss. So that's where it is, and that's where we believe that bulk of the value lies as well, because there's a lot of room for value addition over there as well. There's a lot of room for processing into other things as well, and obviously it is also less messy too, because once food is cooked, the lifespan of channelizing it, reduces drastically very much. So एक दफा खाना गर्म हो जाता है तो 4 घंटे के अंदर आपने उसको डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करना है. That's kind of like a global set standard, and you cannot heat it more than twice, right? So that's kind of like a standard. So the more we go into cooked food, the more messy it gets. So that is why over there globally there's a trend more so on consumer education and consumer awareness on how they could utilize it, by procuring less and making less in the first place, and secondly, then if there is any leftover, how they can channelize it locally rather than having huge logistics move it around. And more so globally, the focus is on packed goods and anything that is packaged already and that's near to expiry, and that is raw in its first place, raw fruits and vegetables. So that's where more so people are shifting towards, and yeah, so that's kind of like it.
Thank you. The floor is now open to the audience, so anyone can ask a question.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. So,
Walaikum Assalam.
thank you so much. It was such an inspiring session coming from someone like you. आप लोग माशाल्लाह, we are, हम तो पिछली सदी के लोग हैं. So you are doing an amazing job, mashallah. So as I think I mentioned to you earlier as well, food waste is obviously a huge concern, but what about the packaging which comes with the food waste? Because what packaging do you use, for example, and how do you kind of ensure that it is a safe and sustainable packaging? And especially, we see videos of food being distributed in Gaza and Yemen and all those areas with one plate, just one serving and so much of packaging waste. So how do you address that? And, especially about having sustainable ways of distributing food?
देखिए, उसमें एक तो ये है कि अगर एक तो है कि एक्सेस फूड की डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, या सो उसमें तो एक चीज है कि एक तो एक्सेस फूड की डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन और एक वैसे ही कुक फूड की डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन जो आप दस्तरखानों पे करते हैं, वो सारी चीजें. सो दोज आर टू डिफरेंट थिंग्स. अब एक्सेस फूड की डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के अंदर भी मैं कहूँगा कि देयर आर टू कैटेगरीज, जैसे मैंने आपको बताया. एक ऑलरेडी कुक्ड फूड है और एक ऑलरेडी रॉ मटेरियल्स हैं, यहाँ पे पैकेज गुड्स हैं. तो जो हमारा प्राइमरी फोकस तो पैकेज गुड्स या रॉ मटेरियल्स पे है, तो वो तो जिन पैकेजिंग में आते हैं, तो those are normally distributed as is, right? So for example, if I have near to expiry stock of frozen mangoes, मुझे वो कंपनी की पैकेजिंग में आएगा, वो मैं उसी तरीके से आगे प्रोसेस कर दूंगा, राइट? कुक्ड फूड का डिफरेंट होता है. कुक्ड फूड के अंदर दैट इज कि जितनी ज़्यादा हम उसके ऊपर इन्वेस्टमेंट न्यू फाउंड पैकेजिंग की इसलिए नहीं करते क्योंकि दैन इट बीट्स द पर्पस, राइट? मैं बचे हुए खाने से ज़्यादा लोगों को खिलाना चाहता हूँ, तो लेकिन अगर मैं पैकेजिंग के ऊपर उसके ऊपर इतना पैसा लगा दूं, उसके अंदर मैं 2-4 मील्स वैसे ही नए फ्रेश फूड के खिला दूंगा, सो दैट इकोनॉमिकली डजंट मेक सेंस. तो हमें जब हम कुक फूड की बहुत ज्यादा डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन करते थे, तो वी यूज्ड टू डू इट जस्ट वाया सिंपल प्लास्टिक पैकेजिंग, एज क्रूड एज इट साउंड्स, बट द थिंग इज इकोनॉमिकली इट डजंट मेक सेंस. क्योंकि एक चीज मैं अमूमन प्रैक्टिशनर्स को और वो सारी चीजों को ये कहता हूँ कि फूड वेस्ट मोर सो देन एन मॉरल प्रॉब्लम इज एन इकोनॉमिक प्रॉब्लम एज वेल, राइट? तो इनके पीछे जब आप फूड सप्लायर्स के बात करेंगे तो अमूमन उनकी कोई ना कोई इकोनॉमिक्स होगी जिसकी वजह से वो फूड वेस्ट करते हैं. अब आई विल गिव यू अ वेरी क्रूड एग्जांपल. एक दफ़ा लाहौर के अंदर यहाँ पे कोई क्रिकेट स्टेडियम के इर्द गिर्द हमारा मैच था, और देयर वाज, आपको पता है क्रिकेट जब होती है तो काफ़ी सिक्योरिटी होती है, तो पूरी सिक्योरिटी फोर्स के लिए तकरीबन 70-80 देगे थी जो कि उन्होंने बनाई हुई थी खाने के लिए, क्योंकि वो पूरा लाहौर उस वक्त बंद था. अब वो हमें कॉल आ गई कि भाई आप आके खाना इकट्ठा कर लें, अब 80 देगें थी, अब हम ही परेशान हो गए कि एकदम 80 देगें हमने कैसे चैनलाइज करनी है। तो उस वक्त हम शुरू की बात थी, तो वी ट्राई टू नेगोशिएट सम टाइम विद देम कि आप हमें जो ना थोड़ा सा टाइम देते हैं, इतनी जल्दी तो नहीं कर सकते। तो उन्होंने कहा कि अगर आप अगले घंटे तक नहीं आएंगे तो हमें सारा खाना फेंक देंगे। हम कह रहे हैं यार फेंक क्यों देंगे, वजह क्या हुई? कहता है कि वेंडर कह रहा है कि उसका अगला ऑर्डर लगा हुआ, उससे देगे साफ चाहिए ताकि वो अगला ऑर्डर बना सके, राइट। सो स्टोरेज कॉस्ट, इकोनॉमिक कॉस्ट, ये सारी चीज़ें बड़ी जो है ना वैल्यूबल होती हैं। अब जब रेस्टोरेंट्स वालों से हमने इंटरव्यू किया तो पता चला कि जो रिटेल रेस्टोरेंट की इंडस्ट्री है उसमें जो आपकी सेलिंग प्राइस होती है दैट इज अराउंड 4 to 5 times द कॉस्ट प्राइस। तो एक अगर आपको चीज़ 100 रुपए की पड़ती है तो वो आपको 400 रुपए की देते हैं अपनी सारी करने के लिए, सारी चीज़ें करने के लिए। तो उसके लिए फिर वो एक्सपेक्टेड प्रॉफिट का बड़ा लॉस है। अगर बुफे ट्रे में, अगर आप किसी बुफे रेस्टोरेंट में जाएंगे और एक दफ़ा आपको बुफे में वहाँ पर खाना नहीं मिलेगा, वो ना सिर्फ अपना कस्टमर खोएगा बट अपना एक्सपेक्टेड प्रॉफिट भी बहुत ज़्यादा खोएगा। तो उस लिहाज से उसकी इकोनॉमिक्स डजंट मेक सेंस एज वेल। तो बड़ी हमें कोर फोकस रखना पड़ता है कि ऑल्दो वी वांट वेरी सस्टेनेबल सॉल्यूशंस बट वी नीड टू फिगर आउट वेदर द इकोनॉमिक्स ऑफ इट मेक सेंस इट नॉट, बिकॉज दैट इज गोना डिटरमिन वेदर इट वुड बी adopted लॉन्ग टर्म और नॉट। सो वो तो चीज़ ही है। जो हमारी वैसे ही डिस्ट्रीब्यूशंस होती हैं, सो दैट डिपेंड्स ऑन द नेचर ऑफ द डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन। अब फॉर एग्जांपल हम फ्लड्स के अंदर जब हमारा काम शाम चल रहा होता है, वहाँ पे मेक शिफ्ट रिलीफ किचन्स बनाने होते हैं, तो उसके प्रोसेस के अंदर वी डू नॉट हैव द रूम कि मैं कोई स्टील के बर्तन ले आऊँ या कोई प्रॉपर बर्तन, वन टाइम यूज बर्तन ले आऊँ। तो मुझे वहाँ पे उस तरीके कार का मटेरियल पैकेजिंग इस्तेमाल करनी पड़ती है मुझे डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करने के लिए। मुझे प्लास्टिक के लिफाफे इस्तेमाल करने पड़ते हैं क्योंकि मैं कहीं ना कहीं कश्ती पे जा रहा हूँ, कभी कुछ कर रहा हूँ, तो इट डजंट मेक सेंस। हाँ, जहाँ पे मेरे रनिंग दस्तरखान जो ना डेली बेसिस कम्युनल जगहों पे चल रहे होते हैं, तो वहाँ पे वन टाइम जो यूज हो सकती हैं चीज़ें, और मल्टीपल टाइम्स यूज हो सकती हैं चीज़ें, स्टैंडर्ड बर्तन होते हैं वो उस तरीके कार से चल रहे होते हैं। सो दैट्स काइंड लाइक द प्रोसेस।
Right. Anyone else has any question? Mr. Ahmed Gerard, sir.
हाँ जी, thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Very wonderful session. I'm also an alumni of LUMS, so Musa and the entire risk organization are huge inspirations for all of us LUMS people. Thank you for Musa for the talk as well. One question that I had was कि अभी आपने बात की economics की and how important like food waste is an economic problem as well, not just a moral problem. And I understand that the economics of making the packaging sustainable at this point in time doesn't make sense. मेरा सवाल ये है कि what would it take for it to become economical in the future? Like, how would you in the future get to a state जहाँ पे packaging makes sense कि आप प्लास्टिक से बजाय किसी बेहतर चीज पे जाएं, ताकि ये ना हो कि हम फूड वेस्ट वाले प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करते करते हम 2-3 और प्रॉब्लम्स कोई वैसे प्लास्टिक वेस्ट की खड़ी कर दें in the long term. So I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts.
एक तो ये है कि वी कम अप विद सम इनोवेटिव सॉल्यूशन और इनोवेटिव प्रोडक्ट इन द फर्स्ट प्लेस। आई डोंट नो कि उसके ऊपर, आई एम नॉट एन एक्सपर्ट इन दैट फील्ड, सो आई कांट कमेंट कि वो आप कह लो कि डिस्कवरी कितनी टाइम दूर है या फिर उसकी जो कॉस्ट इम्प्लीकेशंस है वो कब तक हो सकता है कि वो अवेलेबल हो। दूसरी चीज़ व्हाट आई कैन ऑलवेज से इज के अगर रेगुलेटरी कंप्लायंस से इंसेंटिवाइज या डी इंसेंटिवाइज किया जाए चीज़ों को, तो उससे काफ़ी चीज़ों की कॉस्ट बढ़ जाती है। So many people will be forced to use these options. But again, as I say, a lot of these regulatory compliance workers, क्योंकि at the end of the day, we need to realize हमारी बहुत ज़्यादा population है जो कि भूखी है, right? So we have around 40%, I believe, that are food insecure. So out of a 250 million population, 40% is a huge number. So with that said, we need to make feeding and access to nutrition very, very affordable in that process. So I think this is something that we need to research on. We need to work on with the regulators. At this point in time, I do not have a very clear idea of what the exact solution might be, but it is definitely worth researching.
Thank you, Gerard. Great question. We now have anyone has question from Dr. Zishan? If not, I have one question. If Dr. Zishan is in the room.
Yes, please.
Sir, you know, you do the composting thing, which is your aim is actually to reduce the food waste or turn it, divert it into a more useful one, not to make it waste. If we look it from the point of view, like how many people will you think, because you work with students, how many young would like to opt it as a career, like as an entrepreneurship opportunity for them to take on this very important field, because globally there is quite a lot of organizations which are involved in this designing this engineering of composting, and the biologicals they add to the compost, and many other areas are researching. And how is this entrepreneurial landscape in this area, sir?
Yeah, it holds very huge opportunity for the entrepreneurs, because but there is a scale, like when we increase the scale, for example, the example I mentioned in this presentation, the box composting example, they say that if they collect waste from like 1,000 houses minimum, and they collect the complete waste, not just food waste, and in that whole waste they get recyclables, and they sell those recyclable items, and also they get some fees for collection of waste from the households. So in that situation it pays off. Like it not only sustains the whole process, but also it can generate a certain income. But the condition is that minimum 1,000 houses should be there from where you can collect waste and process it. So in that scale, what they do is they convert compost, and the compost waste is 60%. And unfortunately, as Qasim Saab mentioned that, sorry, Miriam mentioned that we don't observe much value for compost in our society because it doesn't provide you a lot of money, because we don't have a lot of people who use it, who understand its value. But still, because if we collect the whole waste and it will get some recyclables, and you get to sell those recyclables, plus you also get certain waste collection fee from the households. So in that manner, this business sustains.
Thank you very much, sir. Just another question before we close. The composting itself has this greenhouse effect, right? So how is your research optimizing this to minimize this greenhouse effect out of composting?
Actually, when we dump the food waste in the dump site, and due to dumping action, the lower layers of the waste, they get anaerobic. Air doesn't reach there. Only then it starts producing methane out of that waste pile. But when we do composting, as I was mentioning, that all we need to do is aerate the waste. So when we do aeration, when we provide required quantity of aeration to the waste pile, then methane generation doesn't happen. Rather, the waste is converted into the highly biodegradable part is converted into carbon dioxide, not methane. And this carbon dioxide is of biogenic origin, means this carbon dioxide was absorbed by the plants when they were growing, and it was converted into food. And when we consume the food, after that, the leftover food is being now converted into compost, and the CO2 being generated from the compost is the same CO2 that used to be there in the atmosphere. It's not new CO2, not new CO2, right? So it doesn't generate like virgin CO2, so it doesn't add to climate change. But if we just dump in the dump site, and in that situation, if there is no aeration there, only then we have generation of methane gas that will add to GHGs and climate change.
So thank you. If there is no other question, we would like to conclude this webinar. And with thanks to our distinguished speakers who have enriched us in many ways, particularly in the context of Pakistan, because as we just have learned from you that we are the country at third number in the world which is facing this food waste challenge, and quite few efforts are there on the ground, be either in academia or in the community, to actually reduce this waste. So there is a lot of challenges, but as one of the speakers said, there is a lot of opportunity for us to work, engage our young generation in the effort. With this, I thank very much my colleagues, Dr. Adila Bashir, Dr. Asma Qazi, Dr. Sara, and two of our students, Dr. Afzal Shah, Mr. Shehzad, and our DT support who helped us managing this webinar. And thank you all, and I hope to see you again next year on the International Day of Zero Waste. With that, thank you very much, Dr. Zishan, for staying with us, giving us time, and all the audience who have participated in this webinar. So once again, I thank you all, and have a good day.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you for arranging this webinar and for your efforts. Thanks to NAMS and the team. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz, sir.